welcome everyone. We're very glad to have all of you here today. Today we are going to be having this wonderful webinar called Strengthening Climate Resilience and School Safety. This is a collective effort from colleagues from the Global Alliance for Disaster Risk Reduction, Resilience in Education Sector, together with FEE, CDRI, ARUP, and Alana. We will start the day with like a small intervention, but before we start with the presentations, the sharing of tools, just to also clarify that we're gonna have a Q&A. So if you look down on the bar on Zoom, you'll see that we have a Q&A session. And even though you're not gonna have the chat available, you're gonna have the Q&A area where you'll be able to accessing the information and asking the questions you might want to ask to the panelists about the tools or other tools that you might find relevant. So before we start, I don't know, Leah, is George just going to participate in this part?
Sadly, cannot see her, so I am going to do the grounding for us.
Okay.
Move to the next slide, please. Okay. Hi, my name is Leah. I am working at the Foundation for Environmental Education. And sadly, our student from the Bahamas is not here with us, but I have her grounding exercise. So I'm inviting everyone to do it together with me. And we just think about Georgia and her lovely voice to do it, but I take over. So before we begin with this online event, I invite you to take a moment to settle in. If you feel comfortable, gently close your eyes, let your hand rest softly, and allow your breathing to slow down. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. I'd like you to picture a place of peace. Maybe it's the ocean on a calm morning, the sound of waves brushing the shore, a reminder of the beauty of water and also the powerful force it can become. Now take a second, deep breathe in. And as you do, imagine yourself standing on a solid ground that feels steady beneath your feet. Even when you are not sure whether the wind around you will stay gentle or grow into something bigger, something uncertain, even scary. Let that breath go slowly. Here in the Bahamas, we know the winds and waters can shift, calm one moment and overwhelming the next. But we also know what it means to find our center, our breath, to be prepared, to build community and to stand together in resilience. Take one more breath in and out. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes. Bring this steadiness and this awareness into this session today.
Thanks, Leah, for the love exercise. So I will continue the webinar. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Janaína. You can call me Jana, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's webinar. I'm going to continue the presentation with explaining a little bit about the GADRRRES, this like long acronym. So GADRRRES is the Global Alliance for Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience in the Education Sector. It's an alliance composed by multilateral organizations, INGOs, local organizations that believe that school safety and resilience should be the right for every child. And we basically have as our mission the promotion and support organizations and countries on the implementation of the comprehensive school safety framework, which I'll explain very briefly. So please, next. So the comprehensive school safety framework, as its name says, is a comprehensive way of looking into school safety and resilience. It is more relevant than ever right now. At the moment that we are living, we have the world being impacted by different types of climate-induced hazards and also natural hazards. conflict and violence, health emergencies, and others. So it's really important for us to look at the school with that like comprehensive lens. And for us, we have these three main pillars and the comprehensive school safety framework. Pillar one is the basic, is the infrastructure, right? Is the safe learning facility. So how can we ensure that the structure is safe and is resilient to face all these different types of vulnerabilities and hazards? And then we have the pillar two, which is the school disaster management emergency preparedness. So that is like how schools and the climate and the education sector can be better prepared. And that looking from a management perspective. So for instance, does my school have a plan for the continuity of education? So when when the system is hit by like an emergency disaster, like do we have a plan to ensure the continuity of education? Are we prepared for ensure the safety of students, teachers, and staff when we have an emergency or disaster? So that looks more into the preparedness aspect and also coordination with other sectors. So we always have our colleagues from civil, so from like emergency centers, CDRI centers that always there to support us. So that is also the connection. And then we look to pillar three, that is the risk reduction and resilience education, which is the pillar that we look into the pedagogical aspects, right? So how teachers are trained to be able to develop the skills that the students and the educational staff should have in terms of knowledge. It looks to curriculum, to teacher training, and that looking not only to climate-induced hazards, but also we need to think about other elements such as psychosocial support, social-emotional learning, who are also key to, make us more resilient to face those challenges. So that's the comprehensive school safety framework in a nutshell, I would say. And we're gonna have like that, this material also available for you at the end of the session. So let's continue to the next one. So now we're gonna do a small kind of survey. So we want to hear from you. Leah just helped me here. They're gonna be able to see like a kind of a questionnaire, right? Yeah, so in your screen, you're gonna see a small like questionnaire for us to understand a bit of the background and how do you see this thematic area. So maybe we will have like give you a few minutes for you to be able to complete that.
I think we are there. I'm closing the pool.
Okay, thanks so much, Leah, and thank everyone for participating as well. Okay, so let's have a very quick look on the poll. We saw here like how would you describe your school organization current level when looking into its safety and resilience facing climate change hazard, for instance, flooding and heat waves? And then we have 28% that we are just starting but not yet engaged, maybe. 22% say we have begun discussing it. 28% interesting. We have some activities or policies, and 22% say that we have a structure approach. Okay. According to this small survey, most of the people who participate say that the greatest challenge to our school and communities are flooding and extreme heat and storms and high winds, and the others following just apart, but not the majority. Okay, so that was good just for us to get a sense on like, what and I think that's going to be super relevant. We have the heat waves and we're going to have some tools today to also understand how to better, make our infrastructure more resilient to face those types of hazards. I'll pass now on to our next item in our agenda, which is the thematic presentation. So just for everyone who is participating now, we're going to have like a set of presentations. Be with us because we're going to be looking into very relevant tools. And I'll pass to the first person who's going to show a little bit and share with us a little bit of their package. Olivia, I'll pass the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Jenna, and thank you so much to everyone for joining today, panelists and participants and schools. It's really wonderful to have you with us for this very important event. And it's a pleasure for me to be here representing the Foundation for Environmental Education, or FEE. We are a global, I'd just move on to the first slide, if you can, Sarah. Thank you. We are a global NGO working through 6 education for sustainable development programs. I myself am responsible for the Eco Schools program and the Eco Campus program. And today, our global network of members is working with over 52,500 eco schools across 100 countries in the world. And we're really, really proud to be joined with some of those today to share their experiences. The Eco Schools programme guides students and teachers to strengthen climate resilience by identifying practically locally relevant adaptation solutions within their schools and communities. So we're also very proud to be new members of GADRRRES. And I'm delighted today to share our new resource, which supports eco schools and non-eco schools alike. So it can be used by all schools to analyse and monitor climate risks, vulnerabilities and capacities in and around their schools, and to implement measures for change. So here it is, Eco Schools Climate Resilience and School Safety Handbook. This is newly published and it's designed to support schools in strengthening climate resilience and school safety. The handbook aims to align with and support all 3 pillars of GADRRRES' comprehensive school safety framework, as Jan has just presented. But in particular, as I go through, you'll see it really supports Pillar 2 in emergency preparedness in schools, and also Pillar 3, which is the risk reduction and resilience education. The handbook, and we will be sharing the link to the handbook in the chat. The handbook is currently available in 6 languages: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and Kiswahili, with further translations added all the time by our network. And I want to say a very big thank you to PPG, our sponsor, for their generous support in making this resource possible. In particular, we had technical inputs from PPG staff, health and safety staff, climate risk analysis staff, and I'd like to thank Lucy Barrianova, Pedro Perez, Scott Crawl, Diego Fernandez, Martos Alson, especially for their valuable contributions. And a special thank you to my team, Leah, Sarah, Rohan Sukrit, Huma, Somia, and Pramod, for their hard work too on this resource. So next, please, Sarah. Thanks. So this handbook is aligned with the Eco Schools 7-step framework. This is a learner-centered, participatory, bottom-up approach that runs in all our schools worldwide, and that it empowers students to identify priority challenges, activate their curriculum using place-based and project-based learning, and engage their communities to co-create solutions on their priority challenges. And this process supports a whole institution approach to education for sustainable development, and also complements effective community-based vulnerability and capacity assessment methods, which are used in disaster risk reduction. So these are the approaches that we've taken in this document. Next slide, please. Thank you. The resource recognises that young people are often the first to notice changes in their local climate and environment. Their perspectives, combined with the insights of intergenerational stakeholders, are essential for shaping effective responses. The handbook therefore guides schools to identify and actively connect with local stakeholders, elders, experts, and where possible, emergency services and those other emergency stakeholders that Jana mentioned earlier, and make sure that they are all brought into the process. Next slide, please. Thanks. So learners are then guided to carry out their own climate resilience and school safety review. This includes developing a seasonal calendar, a disaster history profile, reviewing local climate risks, creating school and community maps, conducting a school safety audit, and doing hazard rankings. So it's quite an in-depth process which is done within the curriculum, so it can be done as part of class time. These steps help schools build a clear understanding of their own climate and safety risks and what capacities are around them to help. This process aims not to replace the school contingency planning. This is important. It doesn't replace it, but it does help to prepare schools for more effective processes which place learners right at the centre of these school contingency planning processes. Next slide, please. Thanks. So, meaningful climate education should connect learning to students' values, lived experiences, and local contexts. The handbook therefore offers teachers practical pedagogical approaches. So when I was talking about earlier, the fact that it supports Pillar 3 of the comprehensive school safety framework, we have a large section which really supports teachers in this. The handbook offers teachers practical approaches such as place-based, project-based, learner-centred and active learning approaches, along with key ideas for different age groups and suggested curriculum links. It also includes an in-depth section that recognises and addresses climate anxiety in young people and has several activities designed to help to turn anxiety into agency in a positive way. Thanks. Next slide, please. Great. Once a school has identified its key climate resilience and safety challenges, the handbook guides them on to create an action plan. So drawing on the data that's collected and the insights and the capacities available in the wider school community, this stage focuses on designing and implementing practical and meaningful measures that strengthen resilience and support a safe, inclusive learning environment. The recommended programmes and interventions are tailored to each school's context. Every school, as you know, is different. Our climate risks are different. The local capacities available to help us are always different. So we, instead of giving set guidance, we share many different case studies, which from our eco schools around the world, and you will hear from some of these today. These case studies aim to just inspire action and show what kinds of measures have worked elsewhere to address different risks and challenges. These examples often also offer young learners a sense of solidarity. It's important that they know that they're not alone in addressing climate risks and that together it's possible to make education safer and more resilient as a whole. So last slide. So we're really looking forward to the rest of today's discussions, to learning about the other resources of our other panelists and our new partners in GADRRRES, and as well to the experiences on the ground from our schools. Thank you so much again to everyone for joining. Please do connect with us if you're not already part of our FEE network. Please get in touch. We have many different resources designed to help you to engage your schools and education systems with education for sustainable development and climate resilience, as well as school safety now. So thanks again to everyone, and back to you, Jana.
Thanks so much, Olivia, for the comprehensive presentation. I think the Eco School approach and the material, the Climate Resilience and School Safety Handbook, it's a great resource, especially for schools. So we just saw the presentation from Olivia. It was very school target. And the chat we are adding the links as well in the chat. So if you haven't had a look yet, as your chance to, access the material on the chat. We're going to move now to a more looking into the infrastructure. So I'll pass now to Haley. Haley is education business leader for ARUP, and I'll let her continue with the next presentation. Thanks so much and welcome, Haley.
Thanks, Jana. Thank you for being part of this meeting. Really pleased to be here, and hello to my other panelists and participants. So yeah, as Jana said, I am the education business leader at ARUP. ARUP are a global consultancy working across all aspects of the built environment. We're about 18,000 people in over 30 countries with over 90 offices all around the world. And education infrastructure is one of our core business areas. Next slide, please, Zara. Thank you. Oh, the map's missed off this slide, but those dots respond to different countries. But as you can see, we work across kind of the education sector globally. And we are also thrilled that we are also members of GADRRRES, and we're also part of supported the development of the Comprehensive Safety School Framework. So at ARUP, we really believe that resilient school infrastructure is essential to kind of help safeguard education in a world where climate change is impacting us. And our projects globally focus on schools to help them withstand climate shocks while also creating healthy and inspiring places for learning. And our focus as being kind of consultants across the built environment is to combine engineering and technical excellence with nature-based solutions to reduce risk and enhance sustainability and resilience. And this experience kind of informs our approach to making schools greener, safer, healthier, and adapted to climate change. Next slide, please. So I won't talk about this for too long, but just a reminder of why resilient schools matter. We know extreme weather events increasingly disrupt our schools and therefore learning of students and education across the globe, posing significant risks to not only education but student safety. And so it's really critical that we all have a part to play in supporting resilient schools going into the future. Next slide, please. So our approach and the approach that we take goes beyond looking at individual school buildings or individual schools as some kind of single individual projects. But really what we try to do is support clients and governments, and we work with partners to look at entire kind of portfolio of education assets and how we can really implement interventions to improve schools at scale. So from a climate resilience point of view, we start by understanding the current hazard exposure of schools and then also look at the future climate hazard. And we look at how these risks affect schools and learners and try to identify practical mitigation and adaptation actions that include not only kind of engineering solutions, but that nature-based solutions in the design strategies, and also looking at behaviour change of students and teachers in the schools and policymakers in the schools themselves to make them more climate resilient. And also the other part of what we look at is the wider enabling environment. So the capacity, policies, funding, then partnerships that can be created to look at how portfolios of schools or groups of schools within a country or region can become more climate resilient. But I think it's also important to note that when you're, sorry, just go back one slide, that when you're looking at climate resilience, it's not just a one-off intervention that you think about kind of at a single stage of a project cycle, but actually climate resilience needs to be embedded throughout the whole life cycle of a school project. So from planning that project to designing and constructing, and then through its operation and how that school is then maintained and potentially retrofitted if need be, or refurbed during its lifespan. And this kind of operation and maintenance aspect in particular is really important to ensure that climate resilience components are considered in this aspect, in this phase, to ensure that schools remain safe, sustainable and adaptable for decades to come. Next slide, please. So just quickly, as well as kind of actually working on schools themselves or portfolios of schools, we've also supported the development of a number of global publications within the education sector, and I've just put a few on the screen here. Some have been directly for kind of IFI, so we've worked a lot with the Global Programme for Safer Schools, World Bank programme, GPSS, and produced a lot of their publications on how to improve the safety of schools. We've worked with higher education. AUD is the Association of University Director of Estates in the UK, and how they can include climate resilience and adaptation measures in kind of higher education estates. And the one that I want to talk to you today is the Compendium of Adaptation and Resilience Measures for Schools. Next slide, please. So in 2023, we worked with the Climate Resilient Schools programme, which was co-funded by the Mayor of London and the Department of Education and Thames Water here in the UK. And the project was to develop bespoke climate adaptation plans for over 60 schools across London, particularly schools that are having impacted by climate, particularly around kind of heat and flooding. And during this piece of work, we identified not only the climate impacts to the schools, but also a number of interventions that would help schools adapt to climate change. And so out of that project was born this compendium of climate adaptation and resilience measures to address three key risks: overheating, flooding, and water scarcity. And we pulled those measures together, and now it's available for all to use. And you can use the QR code here to scan it, and it will be on the next few slides. So don't worry if you miss it on this slide, to access this compendium, to identify a whole number of measures that can be implemented on school sites. These measures have been chosen to highlight passive design and nature-based solutions as a priority, to improve education outcomes and health equity, and offer multiple benefits, as well as being cost-effective and minimise disruption during term time. Next slide, please. So the compendium itself is split into 5 sections or 5 categories with physical interventions or measures across all of them. So we have sustainable drainage systems that will consist of kind of things like rain gardens and permeable surfaces. Hard flood resilient measures like floodgates and drainage channels. That's more of the kind of the technical engineering side of things. Ventilation and cooling measures, so how to improve natural ventilation, passive design, green roofs, etc. Solar shading, so external shading, reflective surfaces to ensure that your indoor temperature is more comfortable. And water efficiency measures for efficiency systems supporting resilience. So these measures have been developed from our global understanding of and experience of working with schools to improve their climate adaptations globally, and pulled together in this compendium alongside kind of good international practice that we have undertaken. Next slide. So just a quick, I'll just briefly go through this. So this is an example of some of the measures that are incorporated into the sustainable drainage systems. So they're each sketched out. There's a kind of a small sketch about what that looks like conceptually. And then each measure, if you go to the next slide, please, we'll look at practical. So then each measure is kind of pulled out in more detail to kind of provide a high level description of that measure and how you might implement it. It includes indicative capital costs provided for those measures. I would note that these costs are developed for a London scenario, but they might provide a good benchmark for other people. So it gives a cost range. It provides some information about the installation and maintenance requirements, and also how they can be designed to be scalable and replicable across the different schools. So it just provides a very brief overview of how you might consider which measures you might implement in your school and which might be most appropriate for your school. And even though this was initially pulled together for a London context, we've actually used these measures on a number of global programs. As I've said, they've kind of fed into this compendium, but also we've used these measures globally on large school programs, including in very remote areas. So I do think they are very globally applicable. And also one of the things that we're trying to do now is develop this compendium so that it's a live document, and that we are pulling together all the measures that we've used from all our global programs into one place. So if that is something that you would like to be involved with, or you have feedback on implementing any of these measures, then I would love to hear from you, because we'd love to create this live library that is accessible to everybody to use. So I will just finally close with a few key kind of points that I'd like to summarize about what I think is important for climate adaptation measures in schools. So next slide, please. So climate resilience must be symptomatic, and it's should not be looked at in silos, and it should be considered across that whole life cycle. Adaptation measures should really be scalable and replicable and specific to the context, which hence why we're trying to create this library that can be replicated and contextualized globally. And strategic planning at a portfolio level is really essential to avoid kind of piecemeal solutions. And it's essential, as Olivia's also said, and Jana, that stakeholder engagement is also undertaken alongside the development of any interventions, whether that's for new build construction or for retrofitting existing schools. And then, finally, that that collaboration with a range of stakeholders is really key. So thank you now, and I hope that we can work together to protect children's future.
Thanks, Hayley. Thank you so much, Hayley, for the presentation as well. It was very much more focused on the infrastructure. It's one component of the Comprehensive School Safety Framework. In the same spirit, now we're gonna listen to Mahesh, who's gonna talk about addressing heat stress in schools. I will invite our presenters to try to keep the time as well. So we have we're still having the schools as well, and we want to keep some space for the Q&A. Don't forget, if you have questions, as we're having so many interesting presentations, do put your questions in a Q&A, and we're going to be addressing that at the end of the session. So I'll pass now to Mahesh so he can continue the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Janina, for the introduction, and a very warm welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants, and glad to be in this panel to discuss about the importance of heat within school safety. The disclaimer here is, while I'm talking about heat, of course, all other disasters are equally important, but heat has been underplayed in many contexts. Right now, I'm sitting in Ulaanbaatar, which is a city experiencing minus 30 degrees centigrade temperature as of now. But when I was talking to the National Emergency Management Authority, they were more concerned about heat than of that cold. Also, the survey which was conducted at the beginning of this presentation indicated heat, if not, at par with flood, it's a little bit of more concern because more and more number of days are schools and children are experiencing heat pretty much on an annual basis, whereas issues such as flood and storms, while they are very visible, they do occur at a relatively less frequency than heat. So I'm glad to be here presenting on our recent community of practice and its findings. Next slide, please. Um, this is important because 1/3 of the world's children are experiencing at least 4 to 5 heat waves per year. And we do estimate that significant number of school children are exposed to heat waves pretty much on an annual basis. And in 2024, more than 170 million students were exposed to heat. And children are more physiologically more susceptible to this phenomena, and it's important that we give it substantial and sufficient attention as we talk about other aspects of climate-related challenges. Next slide, please. And why we took it up was to start a dialogue, to foster a dialogue, and to also identify. It's not that people are not doing anything. A lot of people are doing things, but in silos. And it's important to surface those good practices and measures. And also in the context of, regions and countries, we need to bring about some of these innovative solutions and provide policy recommendation. More importantly, this guide or guidance document is targeted towards school administrators and decision makers who can make things happen on the ground. Next slide, please. So what we did was we came up with the topic, but actually the content and the inputs for this have come from more than 150 global experts spanning 70 plus organizations, and this 7 key guidance which has emerged cover around school and health, school and community, and also looks in terms of gender, disability, and inclusion, and how heat not only being looked at within schools, but also heat is looked at in transit while children are in bus coming to school or going back home from school, how heat is taken into consideration during the transit. But also more importantly, it also looks preparedness start from home, right? And not only focus on school, but also the community as a whole, and how things like nature-based solutions could be integrated as a part of the larger systemic approach. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but let me quickly take you all through the 7-step process. The step 1 is setting up governance. And the governance mechanism should be multi-stakeholder and should include both, of course, the school teachers and administrators, but also the municipality, parents, and also children in the process. And standard operating procedures should be established for both preparedness and also for response. And it also should include, diverse voices, which are people with disability, girl children, and also economically disadvantaged communities, who um, who need to be, due attention need to be given not only for children being at school, but like I said, for the community as a whole surrounding the school. Next slide, please. The second step in the process is using science-based approach and using data for decision making. And there are, with the advent of technologies, we have many IoTs, but for measuring heat, all we need is simple thermometer and, equipments which are not that expensive, and these are very much affordable, and they can be moved around, and it can help children learn about impact of heat. In many cases, heat has been a silent killer. Many a times people don't recognize heat as a disaster because in many cases the comorbidity takes over. People faint and they say that yes, the person was not hydrated. They don't say that it is because of heat. Or if a person succumbs, they probably call it because of a different phenomena, either because of age or either because of some of the comorbidity they may be suffering from, and not necessarily blame it on heat. Thereby heat gets less attention and less involvement. Therefore, a science-based approach where children using thermometers and hydrometers have proven to be quite effective. This has been tried and tested in Philippines, where school sessions, even the use of the playground, the timing of the school, and also how much students spend in a certain classrooms which are poorly ventilated or which are exposed to high heat and humidity conditions are defined and can be targeted for specific actions. Next slide, please. Also, what is important is including adaptive options. There are multiple passive cooling and ventilation options, and there are multiple nature-based solutions that's just increasing the greenery and also reducing the paved surfaces. Actually, using these kinds of adaptive actions that are not expensive, it actually reduces the cost, rather than paved surfaces having greener surfaces, which also increase the infiltration and can provide additional benefits. Simple measures like painting the roof or increasing the size of the sunshade, or just making sure certain ventilation mechanisms are brought into play are very simple but quite effective when it comes to heat and humidity. Next slide, please. Also, what is important is to educate children about it. Building heat resilience in school should have intersectoral lens. How people of different gender, age, health, and with the local environment are impacted, and this plays out a larger role in students and their exposure to heat. So building heat resilient or heat literacy into the curriculum becomes quite important for creating the necessary change, if not for today, but for the future. Next slide, please. And the underlying risk, like I said, is very much important. It is not only heat, but there are a lot of adaptation measures which needs to be brought about. For example, proper hydration, water belts to increase or give due hydration breaks during the day. This is a simple no-cost measure, but it has a huge impact. This has been tried and tested in India, and it has proven to be quite effective by bringing down the number of children experiencing heat strokes. And also installing safe drinking water. There's also been instances where especially girl children are, they avoid drinking water because the washrooms are not clean. And that's where we need to ensure that it is not only creating measures for heat, but also ensuring safety around wash is going to be very critical for addressing heat relevant challenges. And also midday meal system, and these can be integrated and looked at it holistically rather than in isolation. Next slide, please. Finally, investing in risk reduction. Actually, there are multiple options, ways in which school administration can bring this about. And there have been cases where, school playgrounds and are used not only for the safety of children, but also they are designed in a way that the community can make use of it. There are mechanisms in which school administration undertaking some of the measures, adaptation and resilience measures, can be budgeted or can be funded by philanthropy organizations. And also the greening and cooling of the spaces, given the size of the schools within the community, I think it can play a very key role in the larger heat resilience in and around the school administration building. Next slide, please. And finally, preparing for the future. That is, whatever it's been, the SOPs, the adaptation measures, all these things can only function if proper audit and regular check is being done. And these can be done by school children in many cases, and also regularizing drills. Many times people do undertake earthquake drills, which happen once in, a couple of years. But then if you integrate all these safety drills together, like heat, for flood, for earthquake, all put together, then it makes more sense. Children also see that why they are doing the drill, and they can also see some benefit of that drill, by undertaking heat relevant drills. I think preparedness drills can actually help co-benefit other hazards and other extreme events. And finally, the important thing is to document and review health incidents during extreme events, and also ensuring that these practices are improved. So these are the 7 broad recommendations. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Mash, I will. Yeah, okay, you're finishing it. Go ahead, go ahead.
So the document is currently available. People can scan the QR and use it for you. Janina, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a very interesting presentation. I think some of the, I think HET is a silence hazard, and it is becoming more and more common in some regions in particularly, and we need to be looking at it, how we address from a preparedness and a response as well. So thank you so much for sharing the resource. And again, if colleagues have questions, please leave the Q&A. We'll have a moment to answer the questions as well. Thank you, Mahesh, as well, for your participation. Stay with us until we have the answers for the Q&A. I'll pass next to Lais Fleury from the Alana Foundation Institute, and she's going to talk a little bit about the nature-based solutions for safe learning environments. Lais, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, Jan. I'm very, very happy and pleased to be here with you and all the partners here. My name is Lais. I work for Alana, that is a social environment, Brazilian-based governor, social organization, but we work globally. And I'm very happy to talk about nature-based solutions that we've been implementing in Brazil for safe learning, and like to also help to plan educational system to become more adapted to climate resilience. So I would like to start that saying that the program that we have started in Brazil like 10 years ago, the main goal was to bring nature to schools, for example, just to make sure that kids would have contact with nature. So we've been advocating in Brazil for a long time for kids, even kids like in the urban settings, that they could have contact with nature in the school. So we've been working for a long time with the educational systems, like bringing natural playgrounds for the schools, but not only for the school, but also for the city. But then what happened is that, like couple of years ago, the climate crisis has become very much more intense, not only the climate crisis, but also the air pollution and the loss of biodiversity. People are talking about that very much. But the disconnection with nature, like for the kids, it's been also like a very invisible crisis that it's happening in not only in Brazil, but in the entire world. So what I'm trying to say is that we are still like working with the same strategy, but now with the same strategy, we can allocate all these crises that it's happening right now, like to bring the opportunity for children to connect with nature, but also to tackle all these climates that I've mentioned before. And the solution, of course, is to work with infrastructure like in the schools that brings nature-based solutions. And then recently we made like we had a partnership with MAP Biomas, and we had we did like a research in Brazil, and we figure out that pretty much 90% of the schools in Brazil are in vulnerable areas to climate impacts and are located like in a very unprivileged communities. So we also understood that unfortunately, all the schools that are more exposed to climate resilience, they're also like located in a very unprivileged communities. And with this research, we were able to stimulate lots of capitals in Brazil to also bring nature-based solutions for their school infrastructure. So when we talk about adapting schools for climate to become more resilient, we need to work in three main pillars. The first one is the infrastructure, like to bring nature-based solutions for the infrastructure. That's what I'm mainly going to talk about. But we also need to work with contingency, because if the, like if the climate risk is very it's very intense, the school needs to be prepared on how to deal with that before, during, and after the crisis. And also we need to work a lot in the pedagogical pillar, because as my colleague has already mentioned, like it's very important to share like climate education with the students, and not only with the students, but with the entire school communities, because then if something happens, they are able to learn how to prevent, and also they're able to learn how to tackle, like the crisis, and also to gain green skills for the new economy that we've been trying to set up. So they're going to be able to have like green skills to also work in favor of to mitigate climate change. So pretty much we work in these three pillars. We understand that they are essential. And then I'm going to bring some examples of projects that we have already made in Brazil. So this first image that it's in if you can just like change the slide. Yes, this first one, it's like a very standard natural playground in Brazil. And we can see that there are not a lot of shades. The soil are impermeable, like the surface, and not necessarily like the playgrounds, like the tiles are made by natural elements. So, and this type of playgrounds, what happens is that they contribute a lot to the rising temperature and the thermal discomfort. So even if it's super fun to play there, during like heat, kids are not able to play there because it's very uncomfortable. So the next slide, you see like the same place, what we have done to become it more comfortable for the kids to play. So we brought, for example, rain garden here, just to bring also like to manage the water flow more like smoothly. And also we kept natural play elements. We worked a little bit with the landscape design, really like working in favor of the terrain landscape. And also we exchanged the surface for like more permeable surface that also contributes to the water flow. Another example, I think it's in the next slide, you can see that this is like exactly, that was the playground of this school, no attractions at all, super concrete, no shade, so super hard, not very attractive for the kids to play. And then we worked there in partnership with Urban 95, with Van Leer, working with some municipalities in Brazil to help them to be more child-friendly and also to become greener. And then we added like vegetation to bring more shade. We added like shadows. We now like work with permeable surface. So if it rains a lot, sorry about that. So if it rains a lot, it's not like the water really knows where to go, and lots of natural play elements that the kids can play, and it becomes more attractive for them. So by this time that we had a partnership with Urban 95, all these municipalities, they were working with natural playgrounds much more for like to have more like pedagogical tools to work with the kids, but also to connect them with nature. But now the reality has totally changed. So the next slide, you're going to see this project it was like a partnership that we did with the state of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil, that it was severely impacted by flooding. And we created this project not only to connect the kids with nature, and not only to have like a more high quality in their curriculum and in their learning, but also there is a functionality of all these nature-based solutions that we propose to them, because when it happens, the flooding again, it's gonna reduce the impact that they're gonna be exposed to. So now we added this other layer. So for example, we had cisterns, just to make sure that when it rains a lot, they can store water. So when the heat wave comes, they have water, to rain, to water the garden, things like that. We did outdoor classrooms, so kids can be outside, and in the heat again, they can have like a more climate, more temperature comfortable. We added mini forests for the same reason. We added natural playgrounds, so the soil are more permeable, they have more shade. And also we added solar panels, so the energy is like a green energy. And also we added, for example, windows in the construction, so the heat, like it's much more reduced. So it was very interesting to work with them, because the state understood that they could not have the same school, because the same school was completely devastated by the flooding, that they need to add nature-based solutions for if something happen again, the climate risks happen again, they are able to reduce the impact with that. And adding with that, like just to scale up these solutions in Brazil, we have just launched a guide. The name is Nature-Based Education. It's a guide for greener and more resilient schools. And we made a partnership with the federal government in Brazil that promotes funds for the public schools to create their own projects and create their own schools. So we really hope that now we're going to be able to scale up and have more schools more resilient in Brazil. And then just to give like a brief summary, because I know my time is running out, just bring some perspective that this guide covers. It's online, everybody can access the guide, but pretty much we bring a lot of solutions, nature-based solutions, that some technical characteristics, but also the functionality of each one of them. So for example, in this slide here, let me see where you guys.
Sorry, I quickly need to ask you to maybe give us the last sentence, and then we need to continue so that we can.
Okay, yeah. So I it's just like a guide that you're going to find a lot of nature-based solutions. That's how I mentioned. And then in my last slide, you're going to see the QR code, and then you're going to be able to access it. So I think that's it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thanks, Lais, for the presentation. I know it's a short period of time and we all have a lot that we could be sharing, but the link of the guidance going to be was shared already in our chat, and we'll be able also to answer any question that people might have in the Q&A session. So let's pass now to the case studies from Eco School. So it's going to be the part which I think is very exciting to hear the schools. I'll pass now to the school Julio Verne School in Valencia in Spain.
Oh.
And no?
Hello.
Oh, yes. Hi. So I'll pass to the girls now, so they will be able to quickly introduce themselves. So welcome, Sarah, Marina, and Sophia. You have around 5 minutes to be able to share a little bit of what's happened in your school. Thank you very much and welcome.
Okay. Good afternoon. We are Sarah, Marina, and Sofia from Julio Verne School in Valencia. Today, we are going to tell you about a nightmare that happened in Valencia last year and how our school dealt with it. So, let's start. Next. Thank you. I suppose you all know where Spain is, but here you have a map of our region so you can see where Valencia and our school are located. We are very close to the Mediterranean Sea, in an area bordered on the west by mountain ranges with short rivers and many ravines, which are dry riverbeds. In 2024, Valencia experienced one of the most catastrophic events in recent years. In just a few hours, extreme rainfall caused floods, destruction, and more than 200 deaths. This event reminds us that climate change is no longer a future threat, but a present reality. Today's webinar is an opportunity to reflect what happened, understand the risk we face, and learn how schools and communities can become more resilient and safer in the face of extreme weather. Climate resistance and school safety are no longer optional. They are essential for protecting lives and education. Next. In the days following the flood, there was chaos. Schools remained closed. Those who were able to held online classes, but most children and teenagers spent a long time with any lessons. Many of them had seen their relatives disappear and watched the water sweep away all their belongings and even destroy their homes. A lot of children and young people are still going to therapy today. Next, please. From the situation at our school, the Socio-Emotional Action Plan emerged, developed in a context deeply marked by the DANA, where a lot of young volunteers movement arose, with the committed participation of teenagers and young people from the Valencian community, other regions of Spain, and even from communities around the world.
Keeping up with this collective spirit, the school prioritized emotional support, implementing a systematic detention process to identify vulnerable students and providing group support spaces during tutor periods, as well as individualized interventions based on emotional validation. At the same time, students were encouraged to take part in real acts of service, such as support for nearby early childhood education schools, integrating solidarity as a meaningful and pedagogical experience. That way, the school's response combined emotional care, value-based education, and community service, strengthening resilience, a sense of belonging, and the development of socially responsible citizens. Next, please. On the other hand, before the DANA happened, at our school, we were already researching natural solutions to prevent floods. Especially, we were learning about rain gardens, also called flood gardens. A rain garden is a natural green area designed to collect rainwater when it rains a lot. Instead of the water running quickly over streets and causing floods, the garden helps slow it down and absorb it into the ground. It works in a very simple way. The rainwater from roofs, sidewalks, or playgrounds flows into the rain garden. There, the water is filtered by plants, soil, and small stones. The plants absorb part of the water, and the rest slowly goes into the ground. This helps reduce flooding, clean the water, and protect the environment. Rain gardens are very useful because they reduce floods, improve water quality, help plants and animals, and make cities greener and safer. Rain gardens are a natural and sustainable solution to manage heavy rain.
Well, we received a visit from experts, including the head of hydrological planning of the Huga River, one of the rivers that overflowed. With her, we learned how important it is to properly manage rivers, lakes, and aquifers. We also were visited by the engineers and architects who designed the Parque de la Marjal de Alicante. It is a model flood park in Spain and can absorb up to 45 million liters of water. It is a true reference for sustainable flood management. Next, please. Thanks. Our goal is that this project not only teaches us about sustainability, but also helps our school become a model for green infrastructure, floods prevention, and of course, environmental awareness. We are currently looking for funding to build a pilot rain garden that can be visited. So it will be an example for families, schools, rain garden that and institutions, that want to learn how to manage rainwater in a more sustainable and resilient way. Next, please. Thanks. We can no longer build acid floods where rain. We must design and plan with climate risk in mind. Rain gardens, green infrastructures, and resilient urban designs are not just good ideas. They are necessary. Next. Thanks. And for last, thank you for being part of this commitment to climate resilience and safety. This is all.
Thanks, girls. Thanks so much for the presentation. I think it's a very interesting approach, sharing a little bit how the importance of also support mental health after the impact of disasters such as the flooding that happened in Valencia, and also the actions with the flooding garden as well. So with that, I will pass to Diane from ARCOS in Rwanda, who also will share a little bit of that work.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for those who are in the mornings. Thank you, everyone. So I'm from ARCOS, like she said. And before we go to another slide, I want, first of all, to talk about a little bit about ARCOS. ARCOS, we are an organization working in Africa and everywhere in the world. So our mission is we support collaborative action for nature and people. And also we just make sure that the livelihood of people we work together are being tackled on. So ARCOS, we have been awarded as champions in Africa from many activities whereby we have been awarded from the mountain. We have been awarded from the conserving the mountain in Africa, and also we have been awarded to be the one of the organizations who have a long-lasting intervention in Africa from on ground. So I'm going to talk about our activities on ground, and also this year we have been celebrating 30 years anniversary of conservation and impacting the livelihood of people. So what I'm going to present is what we are doing mostly with young people and schools from Rwanda and elsewhere in Africa. Next slide, please. So like I said, like you see on the first slide, ARCOS, we have been the first long-lasting planting partners in NGO in Africa, and this one is one of the awards we have got during this long-lasting years of impact in Africa. So what we are going to talk about is what we do with our partners in Africa. Next, please. So, as I was saying, ARCOS, we just work in many areas, and mostly we are working with school and the community in our area of intervention. And we come up with an idea of making sure that our schools is being impactful in environmental conservation. So we talked about building or establishing a demo tree nursery initiative whereby we want to work together with our community members. We make sure that our students are actively engaged in this journey. So we started with 4 districts of Rwanda, and Rwanda we have 30 districts, and we made sure that we start this hub as an example to make sure that our school students are being engaged in this journey. So from our ground, we have a talk from our students whereby they said that this initiative is being supportive to make sure that they are working together with the community, they are working hand in hand with parents to grow trees, and also they witnessed that this initiative is making them to know the challenge they have, and they are actively engaged in a practical way to mitigate the flooding, to mitigate the climate change. So next, please. So what we do at ARUCOS, we make sure that our students think that they are impacting not only at local level, but also they are impacting globally. As you can see on these pictures, we have been privileged to know that fee partners are going to use our pictures on our activities on the ground. So we make sure that our students think that everything you are doing at your ground can impact the global, can impact everyone. So the sustainability, we think that the sustainability is not only for you, but you have to work together and impact worldwide. So what we do on the ground is to make sure that everyone think that he or she is part of solution, and that what is doing can impact not only him or herself, but also can impact the global. Next, please. So this saying I fetched from one of the presenter, name is Hale from ALA. She said that we have to imagine a school that stands stronger against storms and heat waves. So a school which can be safe, which can make sure that our students can learn and not stop because of climate change. So this is what we are doing with our schools. Our transformative journey is making that students have a vision, to think that everything we are doing, we imagine a better life, we imagine a better school, a better school where you can learn, where you can impact your school ground and keep learning whatever happens. So this is one of our way of doing. We make sure that our school become environmental friendly schools, and we make sure that students are being supportive, are being actively in everything we are doing. Thank you. Next. So this initiative of demo tree nurseries is just a participatory journey, whereby we make sure that this hub, where the hub is, students come together to know everything about the activities. We make sure that the community also come to share the knowledge they have, and also we make sure that the peer learning spirit is being installed in our tree nurseries. And also we make sure that this tree nursery demo tree nursery make a way of being confident, and student, community members, and the parents are being supportive to advocate from other districts. Like I said, we only still in 4 districts, and we make sure that they share what they have with other districts from social medias and other ways of learning. Next, please. So everything we are doing, you make sure that collaborative action and responsibility and inclusiveness is being tackled. So what we do with our community members, we make sure that we bring them together with students, with parents, for them to advocate. So they share their traditional knowledge, like you see on the pictures. Community parents are the one who are supporting in establishing these tree nurseries. So before we do these activities, at ARUCOS, we have what we call village visioning, whereby we sit together with the village leaders and the community members to have a vision on what can be changed and the impact can be done. So this initiative, we bring together community members and the students to think together to see what they can do to impact their community. And after that, they collaboratively work together. Then after they have the trees, they go to plant not only at school level, but also in surrounding community. Next, please.
Janne, may I ask you to wrap up in one sentence the whole school approach, because we're a bit tight on schedule. Thank you.
Okay, so here also, the participatory approach, we make sure that even a student, parent, and community and the authorities, local authorities, think that the resilience of climate change has to be done if we work together. So this tree nursery initiatives is being done in collaborative action with not only community and school, but the authorities from the government. Next, please. So The previous slide, please.
We sadly need to give a bit of time also for our turn next school. Thanks.
Okay, so this transformative learning, we make sure that also they protect everything they do in a collaborative action, and we are not only doing it as a one-stand initiative, but we have what we call green learning zone, where we combine all environmental concepts to make sure that this school initiative, together with communities, is being impactful, not only in Rwanda, but also we realized that we have to make sure that the fundraising from many donors have to support these initiatives, because we want it to not only be implemented in Rwanda, but also to be scaled up in Africa and globally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We are very, very late. So unfortunately, the next person, we should make out. I need you to really be brief on in your presentation. The school and the Eldon School in Bahamas. You're gonna have like 3-4 minutes max, so we can have a little bit of space for answering questions. So I pass on to you. Please go ahead.
Good day. My name is Georgia Mills. I am a now alumnus of Bishop Michael Allen School in the Northern Bahamas. And just a brief introduction to our country and school in general. The Bahamas is a low-lying archipelago, so 80% of the land area is less than 1.5 meters above sea level, and we're located in the Atlantic Hurricane Belt, so we face hurricanes, flooding, coastal erosion, saltwater intrusion, and heat waves. So being prepared is essential to keep schools safe and learning uninterrupted. And our school opened in 1965, and it's dedicated to providing a safe and continuous learning environment for every student. And we're really proud to have been part of the Eco School program since 2016, and we're very grateful for the support it has given us in strengthening our resilience. And we'd also like to thank organizers for inviting us and for their outstanding work putting together this event, as they always do. And we'd like to share how our school is building resilience to protect students and ensure learning continues despite climate risk.
Good morning. Slide 1. Climate risk is a shared school safety challenge. Every day, children enter classrooms that may be vulnerable to climate threats. Like Georgia said, from floods and storms to heat waves across our country, extreme weather increasingly affects school buildings, access to roads, and the continuity of learning. Sometimes we have to be careful with what we have been doing, because we have to know that children should be safe. The safety of the children is our utmost concern. Protecting them is not just about buildings, it's more about safeguarding their future. Schools are in the front line, and teachers also, of climate risk, and their safety reflects our collective preparedness. So this is the reality that we must all address. Slide 2, please. What our country needs to protect schools. Protecting schools is the result of deliberate national action. Our country has already made meaningful progress in strengthening school infrastructure, improving preparedness, and implementing early warning systems through coordinated efforts across sectors. By continuing to build on this foundation, we can further reduce disruption, protectiveness, and ensure learning continues even in times of crisis. In our school, we have partnered with a lot of organizations, and we have an ongoing project which we call our Citizen Science Project, where we go to the well field. We have experts on board, our parent members of the Eco School Committee, and we are also in partnership with all the organizations and the government sectors in terms of restoring our mangrove systems and our mangrove forest. I will turn you back to Georgia.
more on building resilient schools together. Like she said, we partner with a lot of different organizations as well as working with other eco schools on the island, whether that be through the government, the private sector, and a lot of environmental partners. And from a student's perspective, I would say that I definitely would have worked a lot with different organizations, especially in terms of with mangroves, which play a big part, specifically when it comes to protection from storms and flooding. We partnered, for example, a big organization would be with Bahamas, Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, their Bahamas Mangroves Restoration Project. That's a big project that has been ongoing since the catastrophe that was Hurricane Dorian in 2019. But overall, resilient schools are built through shared responsibility. And when schools, the government, and the private sector and environmental partners work together, schools can remain safe and functional. And it protects learning, supports communities, and strengthens national resilience overall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the intervention. I think it ends in a very good key, like this, the power of collaboration between the different sectors. Schools education is not responsibility owned only of the Ministry of Education or education authorities, but it's a shared responsibility, and we should try to use more that approach to ensure school safety and resilience, especially adaptation facing the climate change impact. So I'll pass now to my colleague Leah from FEE, so she can facilitate the very quick panel discussion we're going to be having. Just to say that we are aware we are running late, but if you can stay like 5 minutes more with us, so at least we can answer some of the questions that have posted on our Q&A. Back to you, Leah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks to all of our presenters. I think it was extremely inspiring, and a special thank you to all of the students and teachers from the Eco Schools program. They remind us that resilience is not only a policy or a plan, but it's something that happens in the classroom, at school grounds, and within communities, and especially together with communities. We will now transition into our panel discussion. We have around 8 minutes left. I noted down a few questions throughout the session, and I will start right away with one that is directed to ARUP, to Haley, and it reads, are the tools and adaptations in schools implemented in conjunction with municipalities and governments? If so, what is the process like, and is it possible to carry out with intersectional work?
Thanks, Leah. Do you want me to answer both questions? But I'll start with that one first. Yes, absolutely. The adaptation measures are implemented in conjunction with either local governments or with the line ministries, depending on the country. So for the work that we did in the UK for these London schools, it was done in conjunction with the Greater London Authority. So the GLA is the authority responsible for London. We have done work in other countries. So we've been doing a large program in Peru, reconstructing and retrofitting a number of schools, and that has been done with government alongside government authorities. We've also been working in Nagaland, which is a remote sister state in India, for example, again, working with the Department of Education at state level. The process is, as I've said, that kind of key stakeholder engagement, which includes kind of coordination and collaboration at that government level, whether it's local or central government, and municipality, but also right down to the school level. So I think it's important that all levels of stakeholders and different stakeholders are engaged in that process. It's about identifying what exists, what is most appropriate for different schools. So often collecting a lot of data across a large sample of schools within a portfolio to understand what the key risks are, and then developing interventions that can be applied across a kind of a portfolio of schools. So it does take, without going into too much detail, because I know we're short on time, there is kind of lots of consultation and iterations that go around into developing these measures. I know your next question about developing guidance. Yes, there is guidance, and we usually do that kind of at a context level to support programs about how these interventions should be maintained and who is responsible for maintaining the interventions. I would say I think that is the who is very dependent on the context. Different countries, regions, municipalities will have different roles and responsibilities about who should be maintaining the schools, but often, what we do find is either through school management committees or at school level, there is always a degree of maintenance that should be undertaken, and we provide kind of very simple practical guidance about how that maintenance should happen. Obviously, if there are more engineering or technical interventions that are required that are kind of within and beyond the school site, then that might be the responsibility of a local government or municipality, for example. I hope that answers the question. But thanks, Cora, for the question.
Thank you so much, Hayley. I would have another one, which is also addressed to ARUP, but I think it would be nice to also hear something from another panelist. So please feel free to pick it up if you think you can answer it. It's about maintenance. So how, if you find a solution, how can that be maintained throughout a longer time, and not be a one-time solution, but a long-term solution? Maybe Mahesh, I was thinking of you. Would you be comfortable answering it?
Sure. I think one of the key challenges which many people face, especially in terms of maintaining nature-based solutions and other aspects in and around the school, that's a complex thing. I think even though all these elements do not cost much, many of it are not budgeted within the regular systems. I think bringing within the budget for maintenance and operation of any intervention is the key way to create systemic change, which can help in sustainability without either being part of a municipal budget within the local government or within the administrative system, the school budget. I think many of these systems become a CapEx project, which is a one-time intervention, and then things get forgotten. I think having a long-term perspective at the early stage of the intervention is going to be quite helpful for creating that change.
Great. That was sharp and precise. Thanks for that. And because due to the time, I think we only have one question left that we can answer. And I think maybe we can hand that one over to Olivia. I think it's a bit connected to the whole institution approach and towards policy making. It's about how we get a policy on school safety being implemented, and I think the Eco Schools framework or program is a nice way to start from the bottom up and then go into the governments through the schools and community building. Over to you.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, and you've started to answer the question actually, because you have just as much understanding of this as I do. I think sometimes, as we've seen, is the policies do exist in a lot of places. There are policies existing, some places not, and that's very important. But what we really need is the kinds of mechanisms that help policies to be enacted across education systems in an effective way, and models where we can show policy makers how it can work, how it can be achieved in practice without always very large infrastructure change and budgets required. Obviously, those are required, and we really need to make sure that is available. But also, let's look at how we can develop programs, examples, case studies, as we've seen today, of this action happening from the bottom up. The change is possible using frameworks which engage students with their local and communities, emergency services, the capacities that are there, bringing them all together to show how these changes can be started at the school level, and then once the big changes are possible, that they can also be maintained and in an ongoing sustainable way as well by the school. So that would be bottom up and top down.
I agree. Thank you so much. We are said a bit late, so I think I wrap it up in a sneaky way and hand over one last question to Jana, and then we only talk about the resources that we have available. As you presented your framework from GADRRRES at the beginning, if you could allocate funds to only one pillar to start with, which one would it be? And then I'll hand over to you to also quickly say all of the resources that we shared within this online event. And then I hope that we have great engagement with all of them and build resilience together. And I think if we learn something from the whole online event together with the panel discussion, it is that we can only build resilience as a community. And the stronger this community is, the better the outcomes. So over to you, Jana.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't think there is one pillar that it should be prioritized over others. Depends on the context, there will be priorities, but we can't be naive to think that if we address infrastructure and don't do anything on preparedness and pedagogical in terms of curriculum, teacher training, and having a plan in place, the infrastructure is going to be enough. And we cannot be naive as well to think that if we invest only in curriculum and teacher training without thinking about infrastructures and the planning, it's going to be enough. That's why the Comprehensive School Safety Framework brings those elements together. We didn't spoke about this today, but there is a book as well on the framework, which is the policy, right? We have so many beautiful initiatives implemented by different sectors, implemented by climate sector, implemented by disaster risk reduction sector, implemented even by the education sector. If we don't have change on the policy level and allocation of formal budget, then we're not going to be able to sustain it. And when the money draws away, so the initiatives many times as well, because it's difficult to keep them. So I think the invitation is for us to, learn from what's happening in the schools, looking into the policy level. I saw the colleague from Pakistan also asked about the budget allocation. GADRRRES is working on a policy brief on funding allocation for the implementation of the Comprehensive School Safety Framework, where we're looking into different examples and modalities of funding within the government. So we're talking here about domestic funding and how the international cooperation, international funding mechanism can complement domestic investment. This is a conversation for another webinar, but definitely something that we should be looking at as well in terms of sustainability. I'll start closing down. There is a very quick questions that we have put it here. If you can just quickly answer it. I just want to say thank you very much for everyone who participated. We're going to be following up with a list of the resources, so you have that in the hand and available. I think here is also, after today's event, what's the most useful next step for your school. I think there is a mix of everything. There is no really one, maybe there is two standing out a little bit. We just explore the shared resources, enjoy more training or webinars. So definitely I think training capacity, it's a gap for us to fill it up in terms on how we circulate all those good practices and all this guidance that have been created. I just want to say thank you very much for all the partners, so to FEE, to CDRI, Alana, ARUP, that have joined this space today. The schools, the students, the teachers who also participated. Thank you so much for this rich space. And we're looking forward to be together very soon and keep moving the agenda on school safety and resilience.
Thanks so much for staying with us so long, and thanks to all of our partners and to our great audience to engaging so well with us. See you next time.